Hello, welcome back to the Laptop Trader channel on YouTube. My name is Philip and I'll be hosting this presentation. I'm here to share my trading experiences and give back to the stock trading community one video at a time. This channel is mainly for new traders or new investors, but all are welcome. My goal is to educate you and get you up to speed and to keep you from losing money in trading and help you understand the markets from a technical view. I publish a monthly video which covers the current markets, stocks, and ETFs. Our education information covers stages, technicals, fundamentals, market cycles, trade risk, trade entry, trade management, trade exits, and how to create confidence by putting the odds in your favor. If you wish to be updated when new videos are published, hit subscribe now. My email contact is laptoptraderphil@gmail.com if you have any questions. And to share this channel with others that may be interested, use @LaptopTrader on YouTube. This video is for information only and should not be considered investing advice. Caution, trade at your own risk. Most stock day traders lose money. Please protect yourself at all times. Any stock suggestions are up to you to decide if that is appropriate for you and your plan. Good luck and God bless. Always invest in yourself. This business of trading is a consistent, constant learning business. You must continue to learn to advance your trading skills. What does it mean to protect yourself at all times? I'm going to leave this up here for, 10 or 20 seconds if you need to take a screenshot. But many people get confused about protecting themselves and losing money. So let's just, if you need to screenshot that and read that for yourself, I'll leave that up there for you. So here's our May 2026 Laptop Trader agenda. Pretty exciting. I just got done eating dinner. I got my cat by me. I'm kind of jacked up, excited about this week and this month. Anyway, the market changed in April in a big way. A very strong move to the upside after a negative February and March. So what's ahead in the forecast and how to see, not predict, the market bottom. Another topic is how to use the pivot in your trading when it comes to timing entries. And I also included here another slide I put together with an example slide of a basic risk management and a position sizing concept to try to further enhance, protecting yourself at all times. And then we're going to get some real charts and using the pivot analysis in real time on two different industries of stocks. We're going to look at some space stocks, which is a current hot theme, and quantum computing, which was hot but cooled down. Okay. Here's another interesting slide I put together, what to study when markets are correcting. So I'll leave that there if you guys want to read through that. I've put that up before so that, you guys need to keep studying how prices move in different market environments. How to use the pivot. This is a topic I want to talk about more and more the more I've used it. The pivot is an important concept in technical analysis and for seeing supply and demand areas on a chart, or key areas of interest for us as traders. These key areas allow us to time our entries for maximum potential and for minimizing losses. Two key concepts to understand about the pivot point. This works on most, but not all stocks. It will work on low price stocks up to mega cap stocks. I would avoid the cheapest, lowest liquidity pink sheet type stocks with low volume, essentially crap with no sales or earnings and no future. You do not have to take huge risks for this to work, so start small. Anyway, the two main ideas are the move up on a chart creates the pivot point. The move down or pullback or retracement creates the opportunity for us. We just have to take action at the right time. Secondly, the ceiling often becomes the floor. We will clearly see areas of supply or resistance and areas of demand or support. So we'll be able to see supply and demand on a chart. This also works in any time frame, so it is adaptable to your life and your plan. My personal life is quite busy, so I do not day trade, but it will work for day traders also. I will clearly show you these on the charts. This is exciting when you incorporate this into your trading plan and your approach. This concept can be used with many different trading styles, and your style may be a little different than mine. Caution: when it won't work is when you take too much risk and or don't protect yourself from large losses. Okay, guys? This would be an example chart that I printed earlier in the month or last month, I forget. But you can clearly see on the chart here a move up, which creates this high point or the pivot point, and later on that pivot point becomes the floor over here. Okay. We also have a secondary move up, created this pivot point, which then results in a base or consolidation. This pull back into a base. Then when price gets over that pivot point, the stock moves up to new highs, creating an opportunity for us to profit if you entered here in the right area. Okay. So that's all it is. It's very easy to see on a chart. Here is a daily chart. This is the monthly chart of Gilead Science. So this is a monthly chart. Very easy to see the pivots on the monthly chart. Now when you get down into daily charts, things can get a little more muddled or a little more confusing because of the back and forth price action day to day. So that's where I like to start. For me, I like to start with a monthly or a weekly chart. Then if I see, a pivot point and then a base or a pullback and then a consolidation, that's where I like to get those numbers from, or that pivot point breakout area. Okay. Now on this chart, the breakout area was about this 124, 125 area. So let's go down to the daily chart. On the daily chart, 124, 125 would be somewhere in this area. Okay, so right here. This box I drew in this area was kind of the base where I would have been more interested in this stock. And then we had this nice wide range breakout bar, which then took off, almost straight up for a couple weeks. It had a little rest right here, but then it just continued higher into earnings. And then unfortunately, it gave it all back too. So we have to know when to enter. We also have to know kind of when to take some money off the table or take some profits too. But this is just the difference between what I see on a monthly chart and then what I saw on this daily chart, or where the ideal point to enter was. So in fact, in this chart, I showed a first entry here thinking this is going to move in a big way. It didn't. It actually pulled back and stopped me out. Then it built this new base where I drew this box over about 9 days, where price tightened up and then expanded to the upside. So when we're using this pivot, we're looking for a previous move up, then we're looking for a base or consolidation, then we're looking for some very tight price action, and then we're looking to take advantage of price tightening up and then moving and price expanding to the upside. Now, if you traded short, if you're a short trader, you would do the same thing, only you would use it to trade to the downside when price expands down. So it doesn't matter if you're going long or short. I personally only go long in my trading plan, but this can also be used if you trade short. Now, real quick, I'm just going to leave this up here as an example of using some basic risk management. This assumes a $10,000 account size, okay? And it also assumes you're taking the same trade position size for each trade, which, in this case, we would use a $1,000 position size, or only 10% of our account, and you would still use a stop loss. So I'll let you guys read through that. If you have any questions on that, you can email me, but I'll just let you guys screenshot that and read through that so that we don't tie up this video, okay? All right, let's get to some real charts here. Let's close this. Let's get to some quick market analysis. Oops, not that one. Here, let's get to the portfolio. So this is S&P 500 ETF, the main one of 5 main ETFs that I track. I track the SPY, okay. I track the Qs, which have moved up in a strong way, new highs on the Qs. The diamonds also moved up, but not a new high, consolidating at this time. IWM, the Russell 2000, which also just made a new high. And the transports, which made a new high and then pulled back slightly. So those are the 5 that I like to track as far as getting a context or an overall view of the markets. Then what I do is from there, I will go jump down in time frame. So this is the weekly chart. Let's see, we can look at the monthly chart too real quick. But here we had monthly chart, right? We had this strong move up in the S&P 500. Then we went sideways for 4 months where the closing prices were within like less than a percentage point on a closing basis over 4 months, okay? Then we had a gap down, close down in March, significant move down, over 5% move down in March. And now in April, it just reversed right back up like it never happened. So that's pretty historic, but it doesn't matter. We just have to act on the information we have at hand. It happened. That's what it is. And so, in my opinion, this consolidation sideways over 4 months was enough of a correction through time. And then the sell-off in March was obviously enough of a correction in price also that gave investors the confidence to buy in April. Now we're kind of going so far. We just made a slight new high in May to start May. And we're just going to have to see where this goes from here. It could go either way. It could go up because there's no resistance up because we're at new highs, but there's also a void below. So this could kind of go either way. I would still use some caution in this market, but it looks like we're going to continue to go higher. On a weekly basis, we're up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks in a row. This is getting extended. I would expect some sort of pullback in May. It doesn't mean it's going to happen, but I would expect some sort of selling. Not a lot, but I think that would be healthy for the markets if we did have some selling over the next month or two, just to kind of even things out, okay? Now, on a daily chart, this is really extended up, but again, this is a market that seems to want to go up and not pull back in price a whole lot, but pull back through time. So in this case, we've pulled back for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 days, and then kind of made another move up. So that correction through time may have been enough to give market participants time to evaluate, what's a good investment, what's not a good investment, and we did make a move up to new highs on the daily chart. So that's where we're at as far as market context goes right now. We're in a fairly bullish environment. Not everything is bullish, but nonetheless, that's where we're at. Now let's talk about looking at market bottoms. Could we see this bottom? Can we see this bottom forming in real time on this daily chart or on any time frame? So we had a strong move down in March, right, over 5% down. We get down to this point, it's kind of going sideways. We're expecting it to go lower, and that's what happens. It goes gaps down, closes down lower. The next day, it gaps down again, closes lower. The next day, it actually gaps up, but still closes and makes a new low on a daily time frame. The very next day, we get a major gap up, close higher at 2.91%, almost 3% in a day. That's extremely strong for an overall index. In my short experience, over 1% a day is a very strong move for an index, especially as big as the S&P 500 or the NASDAQ. But that's what happened. This was kind of a surprise, in my opinion, for it to be that strong on that day. So we've got a surprise up, reversal up. Then we get kind of this doji candle or this day that didn't do a whole lot. It was up about 0.75%. Very next day it gaps down. So this would probably send a little bit of fear into some traders' psychology, but it closes right back up at slightly higher than it did the day before. It was only up 0.09% on the day, but that happened after it gapped down significantly. So that was another positive sign that the market was starting to turn. Not a guarantee, but in real time, this is what we saw. Next day, we had a bit of a gap up, close higher, about 0.5%. Next day, we get a move down, and you can see it left that bottoming tail. Again, indicating buyers were willing to support this market. So in my opinion, these 5 days right here, if I was to draw a box around those 5 days after this big move down, that was a significant volume of buying pressure. And kind of the thing that really sealed the end of the downtrend was this gap up here. I think this gap above all the moving averages, closing with this little bottoming tail, that little doji bar, even though that's a small bar, that's up over 2.5% from the previous close. Again, that's another significant gap up in the market, and I think that was the beginning of the end of that downtrend. So study that for yourself. Memorize that. When you're getting these gaps up like that in a strong way, that often indicates the end of a move down on a smaller time frame. And we could see this also in the NASDAQ. Very similar price action, right? Move down, move up, gap up, sideways, significant gap up, almost 3% in the Qs, and then off to the races. So that's what a market bottom looks like. Not always looks like that, not always this strong, but that's very similar to what other market bottoms look like. Okay, so real quick, I want to refresh myself on the agenda so I don't forget anything. Let me get back to here. So we talked about how the market changed in April. What's ahead in the forecast? I kind of talked about that. It's a fairly bullish environment, but I would expect some sort of pullback in the month ahead. Again, how to see, not predict the market bottom. We saw that. Now let's get into, and I also share with you an example of a basic risk management and position sizing concept with that slide. Let's get to how to use the pivot in your trading when it comes to timing your entries, okay? And we'll use that on some real charts. So I just picked a list of stocks, and I just named this space data. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but there seems to be a race to space, in case you guys haven't noticed. Now, what I like to do, since this is a fairly new industry as far as public trading goes, even though NASA has been around forever, the Russian Space Agency has been around since the 50s and 60s. European Space Agency has been out there for quite some time, and other public space programs have been around for quite a while. Well, recently, in the last 5-10 years or so, maybe longer, I would say about 5 to 10 years, we've had this influx of private capital and private companies get involved in space. And this year there's going to be an IPO in SpaceX. So that will be a big event, in my opinion, this year. But it's not there yet. But let's take a look at some other companies that are involved in space. So I'm just going to go to a fundamental sort on this list. And because it's a fairly new industry, I'm going to sort by market cap, right? Market cap is just the overall value of the company in real dollars. It's just the shares outstanding times the stock price, okay? So at the top, you'll see Tesla, then Planet Labs, Rocket Lab. Oops, I didn't want to do that. And then Lunar, Intuitive Machines, Alphabet, Firefly, ATI. Now, you may be asking, why would I include Alphabet and Tesla in this list? In my opinion, because Elon Musk is involved with SpaceX and Tesla, I still want to keep this as an idea because maybe some of that technology has been used or will be used in their vehicles in the future. And two, Google has so much capital, it would make sense for them to get involved in space. They're already up there in a way through maps and using satellite imaging for their maps anyway, so I figured that could correlate to Google also. So we're just going to sort by market cap by clicking on that, and that's going to organize everything from largest company to smallest company based on value. Then we'll go to flip charts. I do that with newer industries or smaller companies because I think market cap can really sort some of the better companies from some of the poorer quality companies. Wall Street knows that, Rocket Lab probably has a brighter future in general than a smaller cap company like XTI. Okay, not that doesn't mean XTI is going to fail, but at this moment in time, there's more value, more money from Wall Street and Rocket Lab. That's why I do that, to try to keep myself in a better, higher quality stock. So let's get to the charts. Here's a monthly chart of Google, and right now, in my opinion, Google would be extended or overbought from a value point of view and from a technical point of view. It's just so far above the moving averages here that, in my opinion, it wouldn't make for a high probability or high quality trade at this time. But it's in the list, but you can see this giant move up. We had a pullback with the market, and now we've got this big move up in April, over 33%. So I'm not buying something up that's up that much at this time. I look for more tighter price action like back here when I'm looking to enter any stock or market. So that's that. Tesla. Not very appealing at this time because the chart looks kind of messy from a technical point of view. We do have this pivot point over here to the left where it move up, created this pivot point or this high point at 414.50, and that kind of correlates kind of where we're at now. 414.50 would be just below this high right here. So we're right about there at this previous pivot point. If Tesla were to continue to improve over that 414.50, that I would consider getting involved with Tesla, but there is quite a bit of resistance up here also. There's also a nice target with these two pivot points. Here's a nice high pivot point around that 495, 500 area, probably closer to 490. So there is some upside potential for Tesla there. There's also some downside potential for Tesla here to move down into this area where there's not a lot of price support. So that's why, in my opinion, right now, Tesla wouldn't be a great entry. Even though the price action is fairly tight, I would like to see that kind of get tighter and maybe even drift higher a little bit. And for sure, when it comes to these pivot point ideas, I would definitely go down in time frame to see, do we have a market bottom type of picture, and it's starting to improve. This was a pretty big move up for Tesla in April, but then we had earnings. It gapped down on earnings, and it's kind of went sideways since then. I don't like when stocks sell off in earnings and then gap down. I really don't like that. The other thing about Tesla is they have not really been growing their earnings, or their earnings have been erratic. So I think that's one reason it just doesn't seem like the best opportunity at this time. If you already own Tesla, then I'd probably consider that a hold. So that's where my analysis would come down on Tesla. Let's get into some more pure space ideas here. Here's Rocket Lab. You can see left to right, tight price action, big move up in 2024 in a big way. This move created this pivot point here, which later on became the floor right here in July of 2025. So this would have been a really nice area to enter either in June or July of 2025. That would have essentially given you 100% return from that point in time. Okay, so again, we're looking for a move up, creates a pivot, then the pullback or the retracement creates the opportunity. Then as it moves up, we buy through that pivot, and this was off to the races for Rocket Lab. So Rocket Lab has been correcting along with this market recently. The move up here again created this high pivot, then this correction, but it's been kind of choppy, wide range bars. So right now I would not be trading that one. This was an interesting one. EchoStar, again, fairly tight price action in a bottoming pattern, makes a move up, kind of creates a, now this looks like a small candle. Remember, this is a monthly chart, but this was a 33, almost 34% move in 1 month, creating that high pivot, okay? We also had a correlating pivot right here, where the high of this was 31.59, high of this was 30.08, and the high of the next candle was 32.48. So these two created another pivot, which closely correlated, not exactly with this pivot, but when you put the line across, you can see the ceiling became a launching point in August of 2025, where we had over an 89% move in the stock. So paying attention to these previous supply resistance points can really pay off when it comes to timing, because we can get involved there and take advantage of the next big move. Again, right now this is, in my opinion, extended. I would not buy here for my trading plan, but we have had some consolidation here recently, just kind of drifting higher. But for me, that would need to correct for me to get involved in that. Then we've got AST SpaceMobile. This is closer to what I'd be looking for on a pullback. We're pulling back towards a moving average. Okay, we've got a wide range candle, create a pivot. Here's another pivot point here, which closely correlates with these other two right here. When we put that line across the tops of those candles, we've got a pivot point right back here, which correlates with this high point was 39.08, and this low point, or the floor, was 36.08. And then, you know, you've got 3 tight months right there, essentially kind of a bull flag right there, which then created the opportunity next month for this to take off in a big way, over 63% in October 2025. So you can see how this pivot here, this pivot point, matches not only this breakout bar here, but this retracement towards a moving average. And then that became the opportunity or the signal that, hey, this is getting to an area of interest, a very interesting price point for investors, okay? Now here's what's really cool. If you miss that, right, if you miss that pivot point and this buying opportunity, this move up created another pivot point right here, which could have been bought, you know, through this area, and you could have caught the next move up, which is over 53% in a month in January of 2026, okay? Now, since that time, we've been retracing. Price is starting to get tighter. We'll have to see what happens in May. But in this case, you know, I would simply go down in my plan to the daily chart and see, okay, what's going on? Where are we at when it comes to price versus previous price, moving averages, and what does the trend look like? Well, right now the trend is down, right? So from this point, mid-April, we've been downtrending. Not a lot of hope after we had a gap up, candle closed green, then the very next candle just completely took out all the buyers from the previous day, right? So this day on Friday, this stock was down for over 4%. So not yet, right? Not yet. That's still on the watch. So we haven't really found a great opportunity yet using this technique, but we're going to continue on. Woodward Company, quick look, I would say extended. Kind of a topping pattern here. This, in my opinion, needs to come back down towards the moving average before I would be interested in that one. Carpenter Technology Company, symbol CRS. Again, there's several interesting points on this chart. We've got a base, big move up, pull back, creates this pivot, and then you can buy over that pivot. Okay, can you guys see that? Where we got to move up. This red bar creates a high point, which is similar to the previous green bar, and later on, it creates this shelf, or the floor, right? The ceiling becomes the floor, and you got 3 tight months, and then you've got this igniting month here, over 25% in 1 month, and we're back in an uptrend, okay? So again, right now extended, so that's not the best idea, but just illustrating the technique, okay? ATI, again extended, similar chart. Planet Labs, symbol PL, extended to the upside. GSAT, Global Star Company, again extended to the upside. So these have been very popular stocks since mid last year. VSAT, Viasat, symbol VSAT, again extended to the upside. Coming into a previous pivot, this high point here was 68.76. This week, Friday, we closed at 65.12. So in this situation, with this being extended, I would actually expect this to hit this pivot point and then start to probably sell off and maybe give us a future buying opportunity there. So not right now. Lunar, in disclosure, this is one that I do own. You could see Lunar way back in the past was pretty much ignored, right? I mean, it only traded in a whole month 4,300 shares. Not very much interest in Lunar when it first IPO'd at $9.65. Now today it's at $25.62, but Lunar had a big month in February 2023. It had a high in this month of $136. Later on closing at only $20.10, but still up 98%, creating this huge pivot, okay? Now in this case, I would not use this pivot. It's just too much. But what I would use is the closing price. In this case, the closing price was $20.10. The previous month it closed at 10. So basically doubled in a month. That's significant move up, right? So I just put my line across about the 2010 area. So that's close enough. This yellow line on the chart you see closely relates to that. But we also created another pivot point in the future right here at 24.95. And above 24.95, there's little to no resistance. Can you guys see this big white space in here? That is called the void, okay? Now, remember that number, 24.95, closed at 21.68. So again, this week, Friday, we closed above that. We closed at 25.62, okay? And again, this is a significant move up. So here, just in this 1 month, it had a over 70% gain. Next month, it was up 17%. Then it retraced a little bit, minus 13, plus 12.6% in March. Remember, the market was going down in February, March, into April. This stock went up 12%. Then in April, this went up over 36%. So we've got a nice little uptrend going here, right? It doesn't look like much on a monthly chart, but let's look at a weekly chart. Weekly, again, we've got a nice uptrend. We moved up, created a pivot, pulled back, created a nice wide range bar after earnings. This closed above these pivots. This is where it was a great buy point. Went up, made a new high, pulled back, tested my stop. I'm still in it. I didn't get stopped out, but it definitely tested that area. On Monday and Tuesday, I'm expecting this to either stop me out or reverse course and go higher. So this has had enough time to correct. through this area. We've created some higher lows versus here, right? Higher low area. I'm expecting this to do that. So Intuitive Machines, I'm already in it. And daily, yeah, you can see here where it tested my stop. Came back up the next day, closed up over 2%, and the day after that on Friday closed up over 1%. So I'm expecting this stop to hold and for this to continue to either drift higher or move up in a nice way. So that is one of the better ideas right now. Lunar Intuitive Machines in the space industry. Firefly, similar but more dangerous. You know, this IPO'd way up here and they're just going to get dumped. Came back up, created this pivot here, this high point at 34.37. We closed the week at 33.80. So we'll see if that 34.37 area holds or if this needs some more time to correct. So that is a watch for me. York Space Systems, similar, very volatile. So that is just a watch for me. This is an ETF. You guys can look at this for yourselves as far as if you are comfortable with what's inside of this ETF as far as the holdings. But this had a big move up, created an interesting area here. This base looks like right now we're kind of testing that base where the ceiling is starting to become the floor, and you can see the momentum kind of slowing down there where we had a large candle, a smaller candle, and then fairly tight candle so far in May. But if this could turn up here, you know, I like that idea as far as giving you some exposure to this new industry where you've got a nice potential upside. There's a couple other ETFs that I found interesting. One is ARK Space Exploration and Innovation ETF, symbol ARKX. Right now that has made a big move up and has been kind of plateauing since that time. Here we've got a nice tight candle here, closed at 31.96. Friday we closed at 32.78, so I kind of like that as far as a low risk, high reward potential entry after Friday. We can look at the daily chart on that and see what that looks like. Daily, yeah, we've kind of had this pullback, gap down, then reverse up. So I like this over 33.07. I like ARK over 33.07 going forward. And UFO, this is the ETF that I currently own. This has had a nice move up, pulled back through price and time, and gave us a nice candle there, up 4% on Thursday. And this was a closing price of 51.65, closed Friday at 51.36. So I like this ETF over 51.66. So I like that going forward over that price. So that's just some ideas for you within that industry. Here's another one I like, SATL, Satellogic. Monthly, you know, kind of crazy, right? Up, down, you know, up, down here, and then kind of off to the races. This one's a little bit extended up too. I'd like to see this come back here and kind of test these previous pivot areas, maybe around that $4.75 to $5 area. I like SATL. So that's just how I use the pivot in my trading. We've also got a nice, you can also use these pivots as potential targets in your trading. So if I'm looking for a target, like, so Phil, how do I know how high can the stock go? Well, we never know for sure, but many times the previous high area will be tested. So here, this opened at 919. This had a open at 899. Those two are fairly close. So about the $9 area would be a potential target for this company. And we could even use the high of that as another target, high of 1092. So many times you can use that pivot as a target when things look like they're getting going. This one right now is a little bit too, I think the bars are too wide right now. There's too much range on these bars as far as a risk perspective goes. I want to see something more like this where we get a tight risk area. Okay, so now let's say, Phil, I don't believe you. I think a lot of what you're sharing with me is coincidence. Okay, fine. This is a new industry. This is the space industry. As far as publicly goes, it's fairly new. Let's take a look at a different industry quickly, and let's see if it works in this industry. Okay, let's take a look at quantum computing. Again, some of these stocks in this list may or may not be pure quantum computing, but I think there's enough in here that we can get the idea. All right, let's take a look again at a fundamental view. Let's just list these by market cap, so we can take a look at the biggest and best first, and then let's go to some charts. Again, I'm going to start with a monthly chart. In this case, Nebius Group, symbol NBIS, has been on a very strong uptrend, so I would not buy it right now. But using the pivot concept, we came up here and we made this pivot, which closely related to the high of this candle, this inside candle, and then the igniting candle on this move up. Okay, so that was a decent area to get involved in the stock, back around the over 58.16, so over kind of this area. Okay, so that's just illustrated the concept. Let's look at Symbotic Inc. Symbols SYM. A little more of a chart that's not so extended right now, but we had right back here. We have very little interest in this company. You know, trade 129,000 volume in a whole month. You just see the bars are flat, flat, flat. Then we start getting this move up, which created, you know, a pivot point here. Later on in time, this high pivot at 28.48 coincided with this low at 27.26, and this close at 28.67. Okay, can you guys see that? High 28.48, close 28.67. In this case, I would have put in an order in my system to buy over 28.48. Maybe I put in my order at 28.50 with a limit of 28.51 or 28.52. See if I get filled. You know, if I get filled on 100 shares or 1,000 shares or whatever, then it would be off to the races, right? So in this case, we would have moved, you know, somewhere between 28.50 and $81. That's quite the move, right? And then, of course, we have to watch out for taking profits. Now, since that time, the stock has retraced significantly back into this area. And the low of this candle is somewhat matching up with the closing prices through here. Okay? So this has kind of become a floor in a way. And now it's starting to kind of move up again, following our shorter term 12-month moving average. Can you see that? On Friday, it closed down slightly at 58.89. And so I would look to maybe buy this. Let's see if we got another pivot point here. Yeah, so here this pivot point, this high point, matches up with this high and this high. So let's use this high here. The high of that was 64.41. And this one has a high of 67.08. So somewhere in there would be a decent area to get involved and take a chance. This closing price in April was at 59.10, and we closed Friday at 58.89. So possibly over 59.10. That looks good. Let's take a look at the daily chart if we see anything that looks better. So yeah, so here we've got this move up, creates a pivot, pulls back, creates another pivot, pulls back, creates another really tight candle here. I like that closing price there. 56.56. So we actually closed Friday over that pivot. So this doesn't look bad. And the low on Friday was 56.40. Very close to 56.56. Very close, within, you know, way less than 1%. So I like that this had a bottom and tail. I like the day before it was green. This was a closing at 58.89. This closed at 59.10. So yeah, I do like this over 59.10. If that scares you, you can even wait till it gets over the high of this at 59.70. So either over 59.10 for an early entry, or over 59.70 up here with a target back towards the highs of about 67. So that's a decent target on a stock, without fairly tight of a risk. If you bought it, let's say 59.20, and you got up here and you sold at 67, that's a decent $8 move on a $59 stock. So I like that idea, and you got the potential for that to make new highs. So that's an idea in that one, using some pivot analysis. Let's take a look at a few more INQ. Again, this made a move up back in 2021, created this pivot. Later on, the ceiling, right, became this floor right through here. See, that line matches up very close to that pivot. And that created the opportunity to try to capture this breakout bar here. Now, this completely reversed course along with the market and the sector. Sold off in a hard way, but in April, we had a very nice move up at 56%. So this looks like this is going to start possibly a new uptrend. So we could look down here at the daily chart, see if there's any pivot points or pivots or low pivots showing some support. So here we can see some support. We can see this move up created this pivot right here. That pivot coincides with some of these bottoming tail candles over here, and for sure coincides with the low of this green candle. Right, the low of that candle was 41.49, and this high on this pivot was 41.90. So those are very closely correlated, and that means that's an area of interest, of strong interest for traders and investors, right? So we could buy over the high of this candle. Closing price is 45.12. We closed Friday at 46.20, so that looks like a buy. Take a chance and see how high that can go, because we've got some support underneath here. So that's an idea going forward. Again, let's get back to the monthly chart. Here's QBTS. IPO'd here, create a pivot, sold off, went sideways forever, and then eventually the ceiling of that pivot at 13.23 started to become the floor over here. That low is 13.57, low 14.29, low 14.20, and then we have the igniting candle up 58% in September 2025, and up another 49, almost 50% in October 2025 before the industry sold off. Now again, we're starting to reverse course. So here I would look at a daily chart. I would try to match up the high pivots right through here to a point here, and then buy above that and see if we can get make a profit on a trade there. Well, cores, basic uptrend. Again, this big move up created this pivot. Then after the pivot, we had the sell-off, which created the opportunity over in this area. Not the best opportunity, but this chart's a little bit crazy for me. But right now, it's trading over these pivots. So here's a pivot here, pivot here, pivot here. And we've been trading over that right here. So I like that as an idea to go long on Core Scientific. Not the best chart. Rigetti's a little more what I would call sequential. Okay, so here you got to move up, creates this pivot. Later on, this is starting to become the floor right now since last month. But this looks like a very sequential, big move up, and then there's a sequential pullback where you kind of have a wide range bar. Then the next bar gets more narrow. The next bar columns down. We get a doji bar followed by a doji bar. Then this move up, which created the next pivot up here, right? So for this chart, the strong pivot area here would kind of be my target area as a breakout. But looking back in time right here, this area is kind of creating the floor right now. So you've got a floor, a little bit of resistance up there, but it looks like, if that can get going up, there's a nice void up here for that to move up into. Rigetti, again, do your homework and look at smaller time frame charts if that's for you. QTUM is an ETF, the Defiance Quantum ETF, symbol QTUM. This is if you want to get involved in several companies at once and just buy an ETF for an investment. But right now, this is breaking out to new highs. We can see the pivot concept here where we have a move up, creates a pivot, pulls back, creates the opportunity for us to start looking at it, get involved over that pivot. And right here was a great area back in July and August of 2025 where we had a tight candle, a little bit of range expansion, and then kind of a blast off there, up 10% in a month in an ETF. That move up also created some new support through this area. And now in April of this year, we're up over 24, almost 25%. And it looks like that is going to possibly continue higher to new highs. So that's a decent way to get involved in a new industry is through ETFs. And we'll just look at a few more. Here's SoundHound. This is an AI stock. That doesn't look that great to me. Just kind of this big double bottom. That's got a, I think this has been kind of damaged in these two cases here. Pony AI. No, I don't like it. Trading towards the lows. Quantum Computing, QUBT. So this move up create a pivot point here. And that's way up there. I wouldn't necessarily use that. But I would use this bar here. This bar was up over 530%. That's significant. All right, so this closed in October of 2024 at $1.12. It closed in November of 2024 at $7.06, up 530%. So that's a big move up. That would be an area of interest. And right now, we closed the day Friday and closed the week at 921 over that significant pivot. So I do like that. I also like there's some support here, which matches up to the support here. And we were up in April. Remember, as the market was pulling back in March and into April, this stock was up 31%. So a little bit of relative strength. So I do like that going forward. There's some other ones here. LAC. This is a lithium company. I'm not sure why that's in this list, but same idea. Move up, creates a pivot. Right now, this week, we're closing and trading above this previous pivot. So that looks pretty good going forward. Here's another AI stock. Not great. There's another AI stock. Pretty wild and whippy. Not great. C3 AI in a bottoming pattern. Not great. Lightbridge Corp. Big move up. Several pivot points on here. You can see those. And big pullback into an area of interest anyway. Versus way back here. So for me, this stock, I would need to see it get probably above I don't really like those points back there. I need to see this stock get above this pivot point here. Over 1420. Right now it's trading about 1257. And one thing about this type of analysis, many of you are probably thinking right now, are you asking us to buy at higher prices? And the short answer is yes. I'm suggesting that you buy at higher prices based on the chart. When you buy at low prices, what if you're buying junk at low prices? Or what if you're buying something that's low for a reason and is not going to recover? That's why we wait for a pivot point or a point of interest on the chart before we get involved. Probably the most interesting point to me on this chart is probably this closing price here at 1348. So an early entry, I think, would be this closing price here before this move up would be 1348. So let's say 1350. Right? Can you guys see that? Here's because it's such a tight area. When you get these tight areas, you get what's called price discovery. And that many times is significant for an area to move, for a stock to move either up or down. But in this case, it's very tight. It kind of matches this high point of 1420. We had some price discovery here at 1348. So I like Lightbridge over 1350 for that reason. But yes, I'm asking you to wait to buy strength. Remember, we sell weakness, but we buy strength. That's one of the key concepts in the market. And it looks like we're going to have a freeze up on the computer. I'll give it a few seconds to think about that. And looks like we just had a internet fart. Anyway, let's call that good. I hope that displays to you guys the idea of a pivot analysis and how to use the pivot or a pivot point. And in closing, I will leave you with this slide so you don't get in trouble. Again, what does it mean to protect yourself at all times? I think it's very important, after I just showed you all that there's all this opportunity there in 2 different industries. I think I probably showed you at least 25 different charts, several current opportunities. But don't get ahead of yourself. Please, please protect yourself at all times. There's absolutely no reason for you to blow up your account when you use proper or some sort of prudent risk management. Okay, thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. And thank you for sharing this channel at Laptop Trader. We'll see you next month. Or maybe I'll do another video in April. If you guys like this content, make a comment or send me an email if you like this. If you have any questions, send me an email. Hey, I like that content. I wish you'd do more. And maybe I'll make another video. Or you can send me an industry you're interested in, and I'll try to analyze it for you. But anyway, if I don't see you in April again, if there's nothing crazy in the markets, I'll see you in May. We're in May. I'll see you guys in either later in May or in June 2026. I hope you have a great spring, and see you then. Bye. Good luck.